The gamers cared about us. The principals, the teachers, they don't give a shit.
Opposite. The opposite of care.
So the consumers are ready. They're ready to give us money. They're willing to pay us money.
Yeah.
But the teachers said, do not pay a single penny because that money comes technically out of the college treasury.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground Zero podcast, the official podcast of Lobby Zero, the Ground Zero for gaming. And today we are fortunate enough to have the one and only Umesh Kripalani on board. Thank you so much, brother, for making the time, for coming on board.
The pleasure is all mine.
Have you. Absolutely. And today I've also got Zara, PurpleShrimp, and Strange Rahul on board with me to co-host. This is going to be a very interesting one because over the past few episodes, we've been talking to an interesting variety of people in the industry. We've been talking to a couple of content creators. We had a chat with a game designer, and now we're having a conversation with Acosta. And this is one of my first questions for you. If you were to define yourself in terms of making an introduction, is that how you would go, Kripz the Costa, or is there another way you would describe yourself right now?
I would describe myself as Kripz the caster and the talent manager, but I would be a caster first. The talent manager role is something that I picked up only a couple of months ago.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, I was thinking, over the course of this conversation, we try to have like a beginning, middle, and end. And throughout the conversation, try to get as much value as possible for the people listening. And I think today's conversation, we're going to have some very interesting points. Both Rahul and Zara have got some interesting topics to touch on. But I thought, a good place to start is your first memories of gaming and how that evolved into the space of esports and the world of casting that you've gotten into now. So what's your first memory of gaming and how did that evolve into what it is now?
First memory of gaming, you mean as the very first few memories of me entering esports, or playing games as like a toddler or something?
All the way. Like my first game
all the way back. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first few memories I have are me playing a bunch of games with my cousins. So every summer vacation, every Indian mom takes their kids to Nani ka ghar. Yep, okay. I went to my granny's house and they had a computer. And there's 5 of us. There's 5 cousins. So naturally, everyone's going to argue who gets to play more, who gets to play first. So our moms, instead of having us fight every day, came up with a very convenient system of chits. They would tear up 5 pieces of paper in a bowl with our names written on them. They would shake them up, and then one person will choose randomly. All right. Okay. And whoever gets the chit first gets to play first. Yeah. Now, naturally, there was a little bit of cheating. Everyone started to mark their chits a little bit. And what they would do is they would mark their chit first. So let's say A, he's going to be playing first. B plays second, C plays third. And A has cheated to get the first place. What happens is whenever A sits down, the timer starts. As soon as an R end, his chance is up. Someone will come in and he'll be like, get up. It's my turn now. It's my turn now.
Yeah.
So that's what happens when these guys start to go first, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's waiting behind you. Doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a mission, if you're in the middle of a game. We used to play GTA quite a lot, right? And GTA did not have like a save option. You had to drive into a garage.
What is this, like San Andreas, Vice City?
This is GTA 3, Liberty City.
Oh, okay, Liberty. Okay, got
Liberty City. You had to drive into that garage to save your game.
Right, yeah.
Doesn't matter if you were able to save it or not. Imagine finishing an entire mission, not being able to save, and you're forced to get up. Now, I came up with a very convenient plan. I deliberately cheated to go last. You see, when I'm playing at the very end, there's no one waiting.
Yeah.
Instead of playing only an hour, I get to play a little bit extra because there's nobody watching. There's nobody waiting.
Hey, that's
smart.
Honestly, I'm surprised your mom had that system. Like your family had that system. For me, it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, don't play video games. Just go out. Just play football or whatever. Like, it's not even an option. Now that you have like an arcade system inside your home, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, that
Exactly.
was lucky. Dude, I had to sneak games when my brothers used to go for breaks because they had the system. I had the same thing with my cousins, right? They used to never let me play, right? They used to bully me. I never got to play because I'm a girl. So I used to
Yeah.
sneak games when they weren't around.
I feel like it's like a common. I think most of the Indians that I talk to, it's like a common narrative. It's like my first gaming experiences are usually with my cousins. I would go to their
Cousins,
house and
yeah.
they have like this PC. There's this one cousin that has a PC. Even for me, it was actually I think San Andreas was my first GTA game, and this guy had it. One of my cousins had it, and I would just pop in and just play that for a straight hour. Talk to nobody. Like I'd go there with my family, talk to nobody, and just go straight into his room and start playing. But yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. So what's the evolution like? Like, so how old were you when this was happening? When you
I
first started playing?
was first or second grade, so I'm assuming 6 years old or something, somewhere around
Hmm.
that age.
Okay, okay. So you were like into the titles like GTA, and what other stuff were you playing like before you, I guess, got introduced to the world of esports?
Proper gaming. Back then, we
Yeah.
used to play a lot of CS Condition Zero,
Mm.
and I was pretty good at CS even back then.
Right, right.
So Condition Zero had this mission system. Again, you need to complete those levels, and we all had our separate profiles. Umesh, Power, and Jayesh, Mesh, everyone had a different profile, and they used to come up to me and they were like, "Listen, Umesh, I know you're good, so you can have some of my playtime. Just finish this mission for me." And I was like, wow, are you bribing me? Are you bribing me? And they would be like, yes, I am. Don't tell anyone. And I'd be like, okay, sir, your secret's safe with me. Thank you. I'll take that extra playtime of yours. I
Yeah.
don't care about missions. I just want to play, man. So that used to happen. So
Right.
we used to play Condition Zero. We used to play GDA, a lot of Doom, a lot of Midtown Madness.
Dude,
Uh,
Midtown Madness, bro.
yeah.
I've not heard
Honestly,
that name in a long time.
yeah. Honestly, I didn't even know it was that popular a title. Like I used to
It
have
was
that, and
damn
my
popular.
granddad got me this the steering wheel like for the
Mm-hmm.
first time. And
Hmm.
I think Midtown Madness 2. That was in San Francisco, if I'm not wrong. And I was just going
Mm-hmm.
crazy with it, bro. I was having a lot of
Yeah.
fun. It was really fun.
So
Yeah.
yeah, in that summer we used to play all these titles. We played a little bit of MotoGP as well.
Yeah.
There was one more game about a bunch of monkeys. I don't really remember the name.
Mm.
You had your standard Mario, Road Rash, etc., etc.
Yeah.
You had to play all of this.
Yeah.
The next summer vacation, the year after it, out of the five cousins, two cousins stopped participating. They were the elder ones. They were the elder cousins, right?
Yeah.
And they got their own cartridge video game system. You know, when you
Okay.
blow into it and you stick that thing in.
Yeah, yeah.
They used to play Contra and
499 and
everything.
one.
Yeah, 99 and 1, 201, stuff like that. So they used to just play on that thing in their
Mm.
own house, which is like 2 minutes away from my nanny's house. And we were never invited. Yeah, we were never invited. So they're like, okay, you guys disappear. We have our own thing now. They used to play Contra and some of those more exclusive titles that were, just available only on those cartridge video games.
Mm.
And yeah, we felt a little bad. We felt a little, why aren't we invited? But then they were like, that's how elder cousins are. So screw it.
More
Fine.
playtime for you.
Yeah, more playtime for me, man. It's just
Yeah.
three of us now on
It's
the
like a
PC.
win-win. They get more playtime, you get more playtime.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, pretty much. So then what's the transition? Because I'm guessing obviously there's a middle portion of this story
Mhm.
that's gonna transition you into the world of casting because casting is pretty much synonymous to the world of esports. So
Mhm.
so what was that transition for you like? Like what were you watching? What were you exposed to before the thought hit you? Man, maybe I should try this whole casting thing and
Yeah.
figure it out. Yeah.
So back in 11th grade, this is Kripz grown up all now. Yeah, no
Yeah,
longer a
yeah.
kid. I have my own PC at home and everything.
Yeah.
As soon as 10th grade ended, I had to convince my dad I need to get a PC. I took up a graphic designing course only to convince him that this PC was not just for gaming. I'm using it for other purposes as well.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
had to blow extra 20,000 bucks on that graphic designing course. It was really helpful. It was
yeah.
good knowledge, but I mean, I got the PC after that, and I started to visit local cafe tournaments. People used to be they used to organize these tournaments. It's like you pay $100 a team, 20 teams participate, and at the end of the day, some team wins 2,000 rupees. It was stuff like that.
Right,
And
right.
these cafe tournaments, I started to attend them. I started to even volunteer to help them out. all right, whoever the organizer is, I would be like, all right, let me come in, let me lift some weight for you. I'm gonna move some PC, gonna move some boxes, start with small stuff. I even started my own venture called Impervious Gaming along with a few friends, and we tried to monetize the college esports scene in the country. So there was a lot of college festivals happening, and every time someone or the other has a Counter-Strike festival or like a FIFA competition or something or the other going on. So we try to make a company which basically comes in and makes this whole process autonomous for the colleges,
Right.
because they had no idea how to set up computers. They had no idea how to set up a simple LAN network, and they would
Yeah.
always struggle. All these competitions in the colleges were riddled with difficulties and whatnot. So we were like, let's create a market for them. Every college in the city has a festival and everyone has a Counter-Strike competition. We'll go in and we'll try to take this market over. And it would have been successful if we considered one very important thing. The gamers cared about us. The principals, the teachers, they don't give a shit.
Opposite. The opposite of cash.
The consumers are ready. They're ready to give us money. They're willing to pay us money.
Yeah.
But the teachers said, do not pay a single penny, because that money comes technically out of the college treasury. So yeah, even though there was consumer demand, there were a bunch of factors that were stopping us from being successful. And after that, I was like, nah, I can't monetize gaming enough. What do I do now? So I thought maybe I'll give something else a shot. I joined AFK Gaming as a journalist. I was writing articles, and eventually I moved on to video content creation and casting as well. My career really took off when Optic India came into the company in the country, and everyone wanted to watch Optic India matches. And because AFK had a working relationship with them, I was able to get access to their lobbies very often. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll just jump into a game, broadcast it, and I'll start speaking over it. It wasn't even casting when I first started out. It was just me making a bunch of dumb comments. That's it. And eventually I improved my craft. I was very lucky enough to have good mentors who guided me, who turned me into a better caster. And eventually I was noticed by ESL India, who gave me my first big break. And that's how my career started.
Hey, that's a really interesting story. Where were you based out of at this point? Like
Mumbai.
The cafe the whole time, yeah? Mumbai.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you talked about your mentors, so I'm guessing that's Nishant and a few others who were working with AFK as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nishant, Vivek, Siddharth also helped me in a lot of other aspects of the esports business thing. But when it comes to casting itself, it was mostly Nishant and Vivek.
Yeah. Nishant is a really cool guy. I just had a conversation with him recently, and we were talking about Lobby Zero and the ideas, and he was a very helpful person with a lot of great insight. He doesn't hold back with helpful information and guidance, and it's really cool to have people like that in the industry. Yeah, Rahul, you were about to say something.
Oh no, I was just gonna ask that. So back then when you had started casting, how many other people were there alongside with you in the industry who were doing it for full time? 5 people.
Five people. Play
and
Mamba, Nishant, Vivek, Floki had just entered alongside me, and Fet. 6 people actually. That's it. I could count them on my fingertips. Now there's so many more.
Yeah, exactly. So how much do you think is the ballpark figure now in terms of casters, in the industry?
You mean the number of casters that exist?
Yeah, the number of casters. Yeah.
I personally know at least 15 good casters. That number will go up to 25 if you consider underdog casters who are not really heard of.
Right.
Maybe even 30 more if you consider people who are just trying and haven't received an opportunity yet. There must definitely be at least 60-70 casters that are in the ecosystem right now, but not every one of them gets hired. Not every one of them is considered good enough for an event. But the point is, everyone gets a little something. I mean, back then, if I was featured on a show for just like 5 minutes, it would be a big achievement for me. So yeah, all these casters, they're also young, they're upcoming, they're hungry, and they receive their share of wins, or at least their wins in their books. So yeah, eventually they'll also grow, and somehow they'll become bigger and better.
So now, since we are on the topic of what makes a good caster, what do you think, according to the industry standards being now compared to back then, how would you let's say a new talent that has to come in and try a shot at casting and maybe cast a big event, or even like something which is like a considerable size. What do you think are the criteria for somebody to become a good caster?
I would say that the standards have both increased and decreased right now, and I'll tell you why. Back then, when you had to enter the casting scene and the gaming scene, you needed to be good. Your commentary needed to be precise. It needed to add value. It needed to be not so boring, and you needed to know the game inside out. Your grammar had to be on point, and you needed to be, at the very best that you can be at. That's the level that was expected of you, because the people who were responsible for hiring the casters were the tournament organizers themselves. If they recognize your talent, they will hire you. So merit is the only criteria. Fast forward a year, PUBG Mobile enters the economy. Now there are a lot more things that you need to consider when you're hiring a caster. One of them is how famous they are. If you have a YouTube channel with like 1 million something subscribers, even if you're not a good caster, people will invite you just to be on the show. Now, whether you cast, whether you commentate, or whether you just sit there and say a few words every now and then just to meet the obligatory criteria, it's fine. You can either be very famous, you can either cast a lot of tournaments which you yourself have started. There's a lot of tournament organizers who basically just organize scrims. And many casters that are popular today started their journeys in those scrims. They started organizing the tournament themselves, and then they cast it themselves, and that's how they become famous. Another way is you become a content creator. That's it. The content creators are invited to host watch parties simply because they have the numbers, which is somewhat similar to my first point. But yeah, skill is not the only factor now. And because there's a lot more people watching, the audience also has a say. The audience will cheer for whoever they like. So whether or not you have the skill, if you're just publicly likable, you'll be invited. So skill is not the only factor now, which is both good and bad. I mean, the number of casters that are making a living in the economy right now are great. The quantity is great, but the quality, not necessarily good. There are still some really good people out there that I really respect, and they fulfill all the criteria. They are famous and they have a good amount of skill, and they satisfy all the audience needs. So there are people who are all-rounders, and I really respect them for that. But yeah, getting into the industry has become a little easier now, but staying in the industry is a lot harder.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like from a criteria point of view, it does make a lot of sense, because myself, I wasn't really exposed to the world of esports as much. I was more of like a like as a gamer, I was more of like a AAA title kind of guy, story mode stuff, all those Assassin's Creed, Red Dead type of stuff. But now, with Lobby Zero and getting more exposed to what the scene is here in India, and even the esports scene in general, quite recently, a while back, we organized this COD Mobile tournament, and it was my first experience of just setting something up, along with Rahul and our team, and just the realization of what kind of an impact the quality of casting makes on just consuming that content. It's exponential. You have gameplay, yes, and you have highly skilled gameplay, but then when you have that energetic, high quality level of commentary over that, that's really what makes it like blood pumping. Like you just sit there and you're listening to it, right? So it's yeah, I think but I feel like this is an assumption, the barrier of entry being high is just a natural course of things as the market evolves, because people get used to high quality casting, and if it's below the mark, it's not really gonna stay, like you said. So yeah, absolutely. I
mean, like the prime example for that also, like with the CODM tournament that we were talking about, if you go to our channel and check out the live streams, day 1 and day 2, stark difference in the level of casting and even the engagement that we had on the tournament as well. Like it made a big difference on the second day when we went out and actually looked for professional casters. Arca was one of them, I think. Arca, if I'm not wrong.
I do, yes.
So he was one of the first casters that we had collaborated with along with Upcon. So that was when we realized that, okay, yeah, this is something we need to look into and kind of invest properly, because we cannot just go with the standard, market rate and be like, okay, where can we save money? But instead we have to go for the quality, and no matter how much it takes, we will have to end up spending that much. So yeah, that was a fair point. But yeah, even on that note, how do you for somebody who is starting off as a caster? So for me, like, I had my first experience and maybe my only experience in casting for the first tournament we did for Lobby Zero, because I remember we didn't have budget for a caster. So I was like, you know what, like, I know Valorant enough. I think I can do a good job. And like, I mean, the chat was pretty okay with it. Like, they were like, not too bad, but not too great. They were like, okay. So let's say somebody like me, if I had to, pursue casting as a career or maybe even a part-time thing, but like want to get better at it, what are the quick tips that you can throw away, just to start off with?
The first one is the intention of starting to cast. If you're starting this journey with the intention of becoming famous or something like that, it's not gonna. Give me 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to tender something. Yeah.
Don't
Because starting this journey with the intention of getting fame and money, stop right there. Your motivations are different. Back then, everyone started with the motivation of just sheer rebellion. They just wanted to make esports as a career happen. That is it. You wanted to prove to your parents, no, this is a legitimate thing. No, you can't do this. You want to wrong every professor who said this will never make you money. And at one point, you were like, Professor, I don't want money. You will never understand my intentions. There's this meme, you will never understand my intentions. That's the face that I used to make every time someone told me. So if you want to get into casting, the first thing you need to do is figure out what you like. There are a lot of casters out there, some good, some better, some even better than everyone else. And everyone brings in something unique to the table. And you need to find what you like, take that element from those casters and add in something of your own. Like, as a kid, I used to love Sadokist because he has fancy wordplay. But then I realized that Sadokist has his own limitations. I then looked over to Sponge. He's a great analyst. His hype is not as good as Sadokist. But you put them together and they're better. And then I was introduced to Machine, a guy who's usually desk hosting. But when I saw him cast for the first time, oh my God, I fell in love. That guy is basically a walking, talking poetry book. He's just so good. There were other casters that I looked up to. One of them was Bardolph. Now, I never liked Bardolph. This guy, he was very monotonous. He was boring downright sometimes. But I learned one thing from him. He never repeats a single word. He always has something new to say. So his vocabulary is out of this world, even though his hype is not the best. So I took something from each and every one of them and I tried to create a mesh of sorts. I don't know if I did justice to it, but I took basically whatever I liked from the casters that I used to look up to. I tried to subtract whatever I did not like about them, and I tried to incorporate them into my own style. And that's what you basically need to do. You need to form an opinion and you need to implement it. You need to know what you like, what you want to bring to the table, and identify what it is that makes you unique.
Yeah, just on that note, did you have like personal inherent qualities that were pre-existing that you were able to capitalize on? Because I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but recently I caught a glimpse of, I think, one of the podcasts that you had done with Mamba. And I think Haley was also in it.
Yeah, Haley and Gaming Aura were there in that podcast.
Yeah, exactly, Gaming Aura. And you were talking about your past in terms of you having exposure in drama and all these different things. And those were things that were inherent in your character that I guess you were able to pull from and draw from for this role, right? So what are some of those things? Like, I mean, sure, you can, there's this, if this is the starting point, you can think of how to develop, but what about looking into your own self, introspecting, and maybe some inherent qualities that are already there? Something like that for you?
So the only inherent quality I had was the absence of fear of a stage. I was not afraid of talking to a bunch of 1,000 people. I struggle to hold one-on-one conversations with people that I like, but I can speak to 1,000 people without any fear whatsoever. It's the
Right.
one-on-one conversations that scare me more.
That's
Um,
interesting.
Yeah, and it's a stupid thing, I know, but ever since a kid, I used to participate in all these elocution competitions, these debates, these drama clubs, and so basically, I had that fear of a stage beaten out of me as a kid. And because I'm
Right.
speaking to large crowds of people on a regular
Yeah.
basis,
Yeah.
it kind of became, it became second nature to me of sorts. And ever since then, I realized that I was decent at public speaking.
Right.
And then I started becoming good at video games. And then I was like, what can I do? I'm good at video games. I'm good at speaking.
Oh.
1 plus 1.
1 + 1, 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So I guess, yeah, I mean, so since we have been talking about like, the casters and the quality and the quantity, any up and coming caster that you've recently known of that you see that, okay, is worth a shout out and like, he might make it big sometime soon. Anybody like that?
Hands down, this girl right here.
Oh.
This girl right
not-
here. You gotta admit, okay, all right.
I
This
haven't even
happened-
casted yet.
No, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. 2 weeks ago, I'm casting my very first Apex Legends tournament. This is last minute. I am not at all prepared. I wasn't even supposed to cast this tournament. Someone's internet died, and the tournament organizer calls me up and says, "Listen, Kripz, can you come and save the day? This guy just lost his power." I'm like, okay, fine. I walked into the Discord server. I joined the session, and I'm assuming this is the Valorant cast, a game that I'm comfortable with. Turns out it's Apex Legends, and I've never casted Apex before. And I'm like, sweating,
Yeah.
nervousness. I'm shaking in my boots. I call up Zara. I tell her, listen, I need your help. And she's texting me on WhatsApp all the things that are happening, things that I missed out on. She's my offhand analyst over here.
Damn.
And she's telling me about the things that I can't see on screen, but she can, keep up with because she knows the game that well. And I was like,
Yeah.
damn, come over to Discord
Potential.
and cast with me.
Potential. That's awesome. She was actually telling me just today that this happened, and I was like, damn, that's crazy. And also the fact that when you realized it was Apex, the fact that you didn't say no and you just went like, yo, Zara, like, I need help, and you actually went and did it. That's pretty crazy.
And the funny part is, I did not even have to ask for her help. She started texting me, listen, this is also happening. This is also happening. And I'm like,
right.
listen, my phone's popping off. Who's texting me? And it's her. And I realized she's telling me about the game that I'm casting. And I'm like, oh, nice. So here's me. I put up my phone right here in front of my screen, and the game's over here. Like my screen, my phone, my screen, phone. And I'm just constantly getting this live updates from her.
That's awesome.
I was like, listen, why don't you just join Discord? Why don't you just, sit right here and tell it to us live?
I think you
Yeah,
were
no.
supposed to cast a tournament, right?
Yeah. No, Kripz, you and I are gonna do WODs together, so I get like a
Yes,
little bit of
yes,
practice and a little more
yes.
confidence before I start casting. I
Yes.
think this could be like a fun thing to do. Yeah.
This definitely would be.
Yes.
Okay, so you spoke about Machine and a few other names, the casters that you looked up to, the casters that you took from to create your own sort of USP. I want to know what a few more of these names. Who are your favorite casters in India for a start?
In India, the number one caster is Blay, hands down,
Blay.
without a doubt.
He's been casting for a long time.
For a very long time. I remember in 2016, Team Wolf, India's first team who was able to get to a major, a CSGO major. These guys are playing alongside Get Right and Forest, all right? These are players that I looked up to. They returned from Germany after having played in that major. And a week or two later, they are playing in a regular Cyber Cafe tournament. My team is participating over there. And we are set to play against Team Wolf. Now, this is a little conflict of interest, but I was helping organize that tournament as well. And my own team, my friends, were supposed to play that team. And I'm like, yeah, these guys are up against Team Wolf. They're going to get their asses kicked. We knew that. And before the tournament starts, this organizer guy, Ashwin Jain, he's like, all right, we need a caster for this game because Team Wolf is playing. People want to see them. So I'm like, I'll cast. I'll do it. And he's like, have you ever done it before? No, I haven't. So he gives it over to play. At that time, in not even 2016, this was 2013, 2014, something along those lines. 2014, definitely. Yeah. The major happened in 2014. 2014, Blaze casting this tournament. And at that point, Blaze was just a friend of the tournament organizer.
Yeah.
So they called him in and I'm like, who's this? And then I saw Blake casting. I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's actually pretty good. Fast forward a couple of years later, I tried to cast myself and I realized, holy shit, this is very, very difficult. And Blake made it look very, very easy. So of course, it's been a few years since then. And anyone in India who wants to become a caster has only one person to look up to, one person to, compare yourself to. That's the guy at the number one spot. A few
Yeah, he's
other
really
names.
popped off, right?
Yeah, he's really popped off.
He's
at
doing
this point.
international stuff now.
He's doing only international stuff. He doesn't touch Indian events anymore. He's like a league above now. Who are the others that can catch up to play? Floki, definitely, hands down. I think that guy can be the one person who can reach Blaze level very, very soon. He's got the flow. He's got the talent. He's a natural. The only problem is he is passionate about only Dota.
Yeah. Oh my
Dota's a
God, that
dying
boy
game in
doesn't
this
think about
country.
anything else. You remember that Invoker video we did with him? That just like defines him. That boy only thinks about Dota.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, if he pours in the same amount of passion into the other games that he is currently casting, I think he can, without a doubt, be the number one in the country. Uncontested, unparalleled. He has the potential. A few other casters who I really look up to. One of them is Super Johnny because of how versatile he is. He can be a good desk host. He can be an analyst. He can be the caster. He can be an interviewer. The four holy grails of esports talent, the four roles that talents are able to fulfill. He fits into every one of them without any problems. So Super Johnny is really good. CA is good at Valorant because he has a great amount of knowledge of the game. He can predict stuff before it happens and he can condense all that information, which is basically combining color casting. But because he's able to condense such a large amount of information into such a short time, it seems like he's doing play-by-play. To the average Joe, it seems like he's doing play-by-play. But you look at it and it's actually doing color casting in real time. And that's something that I also try to do. That's why I like CA so much, because we have very similar styles. At least in my opinion, we have very similar styles. I don't know what goes on in his mind.
Okay, so for the layman, can you just explain short what is color casting?
All right. Color casting is basically trying to analyze what's been happening. You try to look at the trends. You try to look at the patterns of whatever these teams have been doing. You try to form a coherent storyline out of all of it. You try to highlight some things that have been working for them, some things that have not been working for them, what the opponent can do to counter it, and what the opponent is doing correctly and what they should keep on doing. So all of that stuff, which is not happening real time, that's color casting. And
so it's more of like an analysis while the game is going on.
Yes, color casting is basically analysis. Play by play is
what you see on screen.
Play by play.
Yeah.
It's what you see on the screen. But don't just literally read things off of the screen. I can see what's happening. Try to add a little bit more value into it. And that's the difference between a good caster and a great caster. A good caster can see what's happening on the screen. He will be able to recite it like a really ambitious, a really energetic person with a lot of hype and everything. But a great caster can take a couple of points of whatever his color caster said, incorporate it into play by play, and then add something new. Create a new flavor to that play by play. So he's not just adding hype, but he's also trying to join whatever his analyst is saying. And I mean, earlier it used to be this analyst guy, play by play guy. Color casting is somewhat like in between two. You're trying to merge the borders. And yeah, that's the whole point. I mean, there's a black, there's white, and then there's actual color. There's red, green, blue, and I don't know, 16 billion shades of RGB and whatnot. So you try to get all of that in.
Really
okay,
cool.
who would you say your favorite co-caster is?
I wish I could say it was you, but you don't practice with me, so.
You're so busy. You're casting everything. You're casting Gauntlet now. You're going off to Delhi soon. I'm just like, when do I get you? You tell me when you're free. I will cast with you.
We'll schedule that appointment soon.
Definitely.
Right now, my favorite co-caster has to be Floki.
Floki.
So, me as a part of AFK Gaming, we also have a lineup of talents. Currently in our roster, we have Floki, Salty, and Universe. These three people are in our roster right now. Floki is definitely my go-to guy because I think he's the number one caster in the country right now, except for Play, of course. He's number 2 in that opinion. Universe
Yeah,
is
and
up and
you guys have been casting for a while, so you all have developed a
yeah,
synergy.
we've
Yeah.
developed a synergy. In fact, I just met Floki like yesterday. We were having a
Mm.
party of sorts. So
I miss you guys.
I know. Aja Mumbai, देखेंगे.
Are you?
So yeah, Floki is definitely my favorite go-caster for now. Universe is good. He is specializing in 5v5 games like CS and Valorant. Although he still has a lot to learn, I think he will become pretty good over the course of the next few months. Salty inherently hails from a PUBG background, so that's why his battle royale games are better. He's been trying to get into 5v5, but he needs to learn the game for it, and that's why currently I'm just letting him do all the battle royale games because he's actually pretty good at them. So I think these few people also have a lot of potential, but they just started their casting journeys a couple of months ago, so they still have a long way to go.
Yeah. Just a quick one on the co-casting bit. It's a game of synergy, right? It's like when you're there with another person and you're trying to define and create this energy around what's going on the screen for like thousands of people. Is there something you would pick out and talk about with regards to energy and synergy with the other person? Like, what's something that you pick out and talk about in terms of like what's important about being there with another person and doing casting with them or casting with them?
So because of the pandemic, most of the casting has moved online. I can't be next to my co-caster. Right. And because I know Floki, I know when he's about to pause. I know when he wants to say something. I know when he doesn't want to say anything and he wants me to continue. That's just me knowing that person. But I have casted with so many people over the course of this lockdown that I think I might have just worked with almost every caster in the country right now. Almost everyone. So one thing that I've noticed is that coordination is very difficult. I mean, there's sometimes when you want to say something, but you can't let your co-caster know. He doesn't know that you want to say something. He will continue speaking. Whenever he's done, you speak. So that's the struggle with online casting, especially with people that you don't know, because it turns into a turn by turn thing.
Yeah,
and by the time
like they don't read your physical cues and like
exactly. I mean, if we were right next to each other, if he's sitting right next to me, we can like look each other in the eye. We have hand signals. There's so many things that we can do to actually turn this into an easy affair. But then online, you just have to respect their space, let them finish, and then you say something. But even over there has to be something that you can do to make things easier, right? So you try to have a conversation before the game begins. You try to figure out what kind of style they like, whether they are more of an analyst guy, whether they're more of a play-by-play guy.
So in the moments where you find yourself, plotted with another caster, let's say for the first time, like if you haven't really done this gig before with that person, do you find it easy to slot into that synergy, or is it? I mean, does that happen more often than not, or is there a lot of times where you have you have these conflicts or like clashes in the way you cast? Is it easy to slot in terms of synergy when you meet somebody new that you haven't casted?
I mean, building a synergy definitely is difficult. One golden rule that I always consider is I never interrupt them, no matter what they're saying. Even if they're saying bullshit, finish your sentence. You have to respect the boundaries. Once they're done talking, then I speak. And I try to adapt. Let's say if there is something I notice, but I don't get the chance to say it, no problem. I'll say it after the round is over.
Retrospectively,
I'll say it retrospectively, and then I'll try to build off of him. I basically try to adapt as much as I can. Whatever their style is, I try to adjust my style accordingly. If they like to do hype a lot more, then I will take a step back. I will switch to analysis. I will just keep on adding insights, and I hope that they build off of me. If they're the ones who are involving a lot of analysis into their play, if they're making up storylines, and if we are both sharing the play-by-play load equally, then we build off of each other. It's just Yeah, it's how much you
I guess that's why you
give
need
each
to
other
be
space.
right. That's why you need to be good at both, right? So that you can step back and you can step in and you can like switch between those roles. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Going back to what you said about it being difficult because of the pandemic, but you have been casting for over almost 3 years now, right? So you did do a lot of LAN events. Look back and tell me, what was your favorite LAN event to cast?
Oh boy, this is a difficult one. There's a lot of good memories that I've made, both during the event and after the event. You know how the after event
I
parties are.
remember it. Yeah,
They're
I
always
miss
fun.
it so much.
I swear to God. One of my favorite memories is DreamHack Delhi. I was casting with a South African co-caster called Nathan, and he had a very different approach to casting. We Indians are just so involved with hype, with flow, with energy, and then this South African guy, he comes in and he's like a monk. He's calm. He's in his zen. He actually likes to stop. He likes there to be pauses in between the sentences. So whenever he stops talking, I start talking. That was my thing. And then he's like, dude, you don't necessarily need to do that. So we came up with this thing. If I want him to speak, we'll be like, go ahead. If I want him to stop, we'll be like, please stop. And if he wants to be, he doesn't want anything to be said. He just wants silence. He'll be like this. And this is the first time I was like, silence? What do you mean silence? And this is me. I was 21 at that time. This is 2 years ago. And then he was like, yeah, to build suspense. And that just, it blew my mind because up until now, I was like, there has to be something or the other that you say in order to entertain the audience. If you've got nothing to say, slow yourself down and still keep building storylines. And whenever something crazy happens, you scream your lungs out. And he was like, no, don't do that. You say a sentence, pause, let there be suspense, and then you say something more. So that was a really cool learning experience for me because his perspective is so different. And he comes in from a sports broadcasting background. And then it makes sense, right? You take a look at a cricket match. These guys are silent most of the time. The batsman hits the shot, there's a nice six. And after the six, they'll be like, oh yeah, something about an off drive or a cover drive. I don't understand jack shit about cricket. So that's all gibberish to me. But they say something technical. And then they pause again. The fielder, they take their positions. The bowler takes a run up and he throws the ball. The batsman hits it. It's in the air. And the caster says, oh, it's in the air. Pause. Is it going to be a catch out? Is it going to be a six? You don't know. And it's okay. You don't know. That suspense, it kills you. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. The suspense is important. So that was one very good experience for me when I got to work with him. I've been trying to...
You keep your audience on the edge of your seat, and it's like casting is like, it's like a performance, right? It's like theater. Just like any other art, the negative space, it can only be better for the rest of it. It makes everything else so much more pronounced.
Exactly.
But then that kind of like, made me also kind of realize, like, when you watch, let's say a Valorant match or a CSGO match even, in the NA or EU, the casters over there actually, like, you feel this tension. So when the players are shift walking, they actually like start whispering. So it kind of like, puts you in that, zone where it's like, okay, we need to know, wait and see what's gonna happen. Like, that is something that I realized.
Really and cool. Even then, like, let's say they're shift walking, I will still be speaking, but in a soft voice. And they're about to set up for the executes. They're lining up their smokes. They're ready to go in. And I start to gradually pitch myself higher and higher up until the first kill happens. And when the first shot lands, that's when I pop off. That's when I start speaking really, really fast. Everyone's getting into the site and it's a clusterfuck. At that point, you have to pace yourself. So if they're slow, you're slow. If they're fast, you're fast. But I was never silent up until that point.
Right.
Nate, he taught me to be actually silent. He taught me to shut the hell up and let the audience take everything in. And I'm like, that's a very weird concept for me because at that time I was under the impression that you need to talk. That's what the job is. But then he was like, nah, it's okay. And then after that, whenever I noticed these games, of the European casters casting, they have these little silences in between their games. And I always brush it off as, oh, no synergy between them. Maybe they made a mistake. And I tried to learn it off. And then I was like, no, wait, this thing is deliberate. So that's when I learned this new concept. That's why DreamHack Delhi happens to be one of my favorite events. It's also favorite because the audience was really, really cool and they were really happy. That was the first time an Indian team is competing against not one, but two international teams. Three, actually. There were teams coming in from South Africa, teams from Germany, teams from Ukraine and everything. And all the big players are here. There were 3 ex-Navi players in India, and everyone was like flocking to them for autographs. And I got to cast their matches. So that was a special event for me.
Right. Quick question from my side. With regard to energy, okay, this casting thing seems to be like a really energy consuming like activity, right?
Yeah.
Like not just in the thick of it, but from the beginning to the end, all the way through. I mean, you'll obviously modulate in terms of energy, but it's still a lot of energy consumption. Are there moments where you're like, I'm not feeling it, and you have to like do something to pick yourself out of it, get yourself out of it so that you get into it? Because I guess it's one of those things that you can't allow to translate into your presentation, right? So when you have those moments, how do you deal with it?
Honestly, I still don't know how.
It just happens.
I mean,
is it like an adrenaline thing, or
it's not an adrenaline thing? I mean, most people say that, yo, Kripz, how do you speak for so long? Don't you feel, the pressure on your throat? Don't you feel like your voice is cracking? Nah, that's not a problem for me. I don't have any fatigue related to my throat. It's more of mental fatigue.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm watching a very boring ass match, a very dry game. It's boring as hell, but I still need to do my job. So
exactly.
I have to find ways to entertain myself. And if I keep myself entertained, I think I'll do a fair job of keeping the audience entertained. So what do? I start cracking jokes. Shitty dad jokes. Sometimes they're downright inappropriate, but I make them mellow. I make them just dilute enough for the stream to understand what I'm saying. So the people who understand my jokes, they're like, how the hell is this guy not fired? But most people don't understand those jokes. And this is a very good thing that Mamba and I do. We crack jokes like anything. Sometimes Mama and I are literally flirting with each other. And the audience likes it. But we don't do it because, we are flirting with each other or because we want to crack jokes. We're just doing it because it's a very boring game. And we need to keep ourselves focused. The worst enemy of a caster is autopilot. Once you go into autopilot mode, you will just start reading on the screen. Oh, A kills B, B kills C. And you can still cast, but you know that this is not.
And I guess that's also where the synergy comes back in, right? You need that energy to like do that with the other guy, with the other caster that's with you.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Okay, so I want to go back to the versatility that you were talking about, the fact that you were able to cast so many different games. You were doing Apex, even though that's the first time you've ever done it. You do Free Fire, you do CS, you do Valorant. What is your favorite title to cast? Your favorite game to cast?
CS:GO, without a doubt. I started my game with that career, and I'm still going to be loyal to it right up until the end. I do enjoy Valorant quite a lot, honestly, because it's similar to CS. That's it. So I enjoy the 5v5 games a lot more than I enjoy Battle Royale.
How about Free Fire? What is your opinion about casting Free Fire?
I mean, it's fun to cast Free Fire. It's not fun to play the game because the game is, the whole concept of the game is very different from the games that I grew up playing. But it's a very chill game. And if you look at it objectively, there's purely from a casting perspective, it's fun to cast. It's not as much fun to play it, but there is definitely a little bit of banter that I can do. Plus, the fact that I get to cast it with the people that I like, I get to cast it with people like Mumbai, even this Gaming Aura and all these guys. These guys are very chill per se, and they don't follow the rules of casting as much. And I can bend stuff over here. I can say something unorthodox, which I won't usually say in a regular cast, and I can, make it work in this context of the game. It's a game that allows you a lot more freedom, a lot more creative freedom.
Right, right. And I think just on that, with regard to the versatility, as far as the activity of casting goes, it seems like something that has to flow from the game through you and then back out to the audience, right?
Yeah.
And so my assumption is that you have to have a certain level of familiarity with the game, and obviously you have to have that a level of knowledge to pull from and create those nuanced comments and commentary. So
Hmm.
I'm just, my question is, like, with regard to versatility across titles, especially when you look, when someone like you who does casting, like you mentioned the incident where you had to jump on for the Apex thing and then you were able to do it, and with Zara's help you were able to make things happen. How do you do that, like with multiple titles across different kinds of games? What do you, how are you able to be that versatile? Or is there a certain, would you say there's a bracket of threshold that you need to dip yourself into across titles so that you can, know enough about the game so that you can cast for it? How do you manage, how do you solve for the differences across titles when you cast?
So the easiest solution to this is to just play the game yourself and be good at it. But when there's so many titles involved, you can't, invest your time in all these different games. So you try to generalize some stuff. Let's say I started my career with Counter-Strike. It's a 5 versus 5 tactical shooter. There are certain things that you need to keep in mind when you're casting that game. So that is one skill set. It forms up and it stays in this corner of my mind. Then comes PUBG. I used to play PUBG a lot. In fact, in PUBG PC Lite, I used to play the Lite version because that's the only thing my PC could handle. Back then, I had a potato. I played it so much, I reached the top 0.01% of the players in Asia. So I played PUBG to a very high level. In fact, I think I might have done better in PUBG than I ever did in CS, even though that is my primary game. So in CS, I was what, Legendary Eagle Master. That's the third highest rank, two ranks away from global elite. I reached that rank. In PUBG, I basically shattered the fucking roof. So these were the two games I mastered first. CS being a 5 versus 5 tactical shooter, PUBG being a battle royale. When Valorant came through, it was a game that's very similar to CS, but it has abilities, it has different agents, a little modifications here and there. But because I had that game sense in CS, I can translate it into Valorant without a lot of difficulty because the games are just similar that way. So I can figure out the basics of the game. What is a good move? What is not a good move? When should you push? Where should you push? When should you hold? Those basics of the games were basically drilled into me because I played Counter-Strike a lot. The only difference is Valorant, instead of a flash, you have a curveball. Some people have flashes in form of a bird. Some people have a metallic arm. Some people have a flamethrower or whatnot. So there's different things, but at the end of the day, it's a flash. There's different types of smokes as well, but at the end of the day, it is a smoke. So the basic knowledge of how the game should work, it came to me from CS. And then I translated it into Valorant. The same thing happens with Free Fire and Apex Legends as well. I played PUBG quite a lot. And even though Free Fire is a very different game because you can actually build cover, it's sort of like somewhere in between Fortnite and PUBG. That's what Free Fire basically is. The overall knowledge of the game still works in a similar way. How does the zone work? Where should you position yourself if you want an advantage? How do you rotate? Yeah, rotation is a little different because you don't necessarily need to move from cover to cover. You have makeshift cover as well, but still you deal with it as you start casting. As after like 10 games, you're okay with it. Even in Apex, there's a lot of things that you need to consider, especially with the character abilities. There are people that can teleport. There are people that can fly. People who can put down like a shield thing. So there's many different things that come in. Yeah, a bubble. Yeah. Yeah,
Zara's like, do not disrespect him.
Do not disrespect. That's why I want her to cast. That's why I want her to cast. So
I remember sitting down with you and like telling you all the places on the map. We had World's Edge up and we were like, okay, this place is called this place is called that, and for rotations and things like that.
Exactly. But that's the thing. Even though these games are fundamentally very different, there's a lot of different character abilities in Free Fire as well. In fact, Free Fire might just be a combination of Apex and Fortnite because there's different characters and there's building stuff. But at the end of the day, the zone works in a similar way. Whether you're inside the circle or not, works in a similar way. How you move in there, how you move out of it, how you defend it, the basic still remains the same. Of course, you can use abilities, you can use walls, but at the end of the day, where should you place yourself? That remains similar. So those few core principles are carried forward through all these titles, at least for me.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I think getting closer to wrapping up the episode, just a couple of questions more on the general side of things. I feel like what is your personal outlook on where esports and casting is headed in India, like for the future?
I think it's on the right track.
Okay.
Of course, esports is going to blow up, and especially in the next 5 years, it has already overtaken the major sports like cricket and basketball and football and whatnot. It's already ahead of those. I think in the next 5 years, it will assert dominance to such an extent that the mainstream brands will consider it to be the holy Bible, and traditional sports will become irrelevant.
Right.
I mean, take a look at this. How many people watch the Olympics? Barely anything. There are memes floating around because the Olympics are going on right now. But you compare those numbers to esports, they dwarf them. They get absolutely annihilated. And esports is shattering records. So it's on the right track. Even casting business in India is on the right track. But what I would like to say over here is that the playing aspect and the casting aspect are the two things that you see on camera. That's the only thing that the audience is exposed to. There are a lot of other roles and responsibilities in esports which people do not know about. And if everyone either wants to be a professional player or everyone wants to be a professional caster, who's going to fill the roles in the back? Like who's going to be manning the production machine? Who's going to be manning the cameras? Who's going to be observing for these people? Those roles are also very important. And if I was to say, if I was to convey a message to the viewers over here, it would be that before you get into esports, before you, start your journey over here, do your research. Figure out what roles exist, what responsibilities exist in this economy, and what are the job descriptions that are available. What kind of companies are there? So just do that due diligence before you enter.
That's really good advice, actually. Yeah, because even I realize there's so much that if I just start digging, I'll find that, because the whole event, the whole infrastructure, there's so many things that people don't see, and but still play such an important role in making it happen. And what about like online versus LAN? You talked about the nature of like doing online casting now, and the situation used to be a lot more tangible, like before the pandemic hit. What do you think are going to be the lasting effects of that? What's the future of LAN, and what kind of lasting impact would online have going forward?
I don't think it would have too big of an impact per se. It's the quality surely is different when you're casting, sitting next to your co-caster and while you're not being able to look at each other. So the quality does differ a little bit, but it's not detrimental. It's not bad. It doesn't make the cast suffer. I mean, if you're paired up with a good co-caster, if you know how they work, if they know how you work, then you will still be able to put on a good show. Of course, the show will be better when you're sitting next to each other, but it's not that big of a problem.
Yeah, fair enough. And I guess the last thing, this is something that we tend to ask pretty much every guest that we have on. What is one thing that you dislike, or I guess would love to see being worked on, improved, about the industry in India? And what's one thing you really like about where it's going?
The industry as a whole?
The gaming industry in India.
There's a lot of things that I like and I dislike. The biggest pet peeve is how gambling brands are trying to market themselves as esports. You have brands like MPL and all these betting platforms. They call themselves a game of skill. Well, we know it's just a bunch of gambling, and they are trying to now portray themselves as esports. And I detest them. I hate them with every cell of my body. And I think they should just not brand themselves as esports. Say what you are. I don't have a problem with what you're doing. I don't have a problem with your business model or how you intend to make revenue. That's your problem. That's your thing. If you want to go for it, please go for it. I'm not going to stop you, but stop branding yourself as esports.
Is the reason for doing that from a regulatory standpoint? They're trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're just trying to
gambling
appeal
is
to
not
more
allowed in
people.
India, bro.
Yeah.
Even if it is allowed, even if you have the right permissions and everything, the moment you brand yourself as an esport, you're basically calling your game a game of skill and not a game of chance.
Yeah.
And that's bad.
Yeah.
Because no matter what happens to your venture or how bad gambling is, you shouldn't affect what we are trying to build over here. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Because I mean, esports is all about skill. There is no chance. Nothing is left to chance. Even in games which do depend on a little bit of luck, like let's say all the battle royale games have a little element of luck, right? So if the circle moves in your favor, you win. If the circle doesn't move in your favor, you lose. You try to nullify that RNG as much as possible by making teams play 6-7 games in a row.
Yeah.
And they have to be consistent across all the games to
Right.
be crowned as the champions. So that's how you nullify the elements of RNG. That's what esports is all about. It's all about skill. Nothing is left to chance. And when the moment you try to prove yourself as a game of chance, you try to prove yourself as a game of skill, that's when you're doing wrong. So that's my biggest problem.
Makes sense. What about something that you really like about the way it's going, like where it's going, gaming in India?
I like how there's a lot of tournament organizers trying to take initiative right now. Everyone's organizing a different kind of tournament. There are like, let's say, the good folks at TEC. These guys are hosting really nice tournaments, big prize pools, and they try to include everyone in their tournaments. They hold open qualifiers, whether you're an underdog or whether you're a person that has been winning tournaments for the rest, for like the last 7 years, you will still be able to play in that tournament. And it provides a fair competing ground. Then there are tournament organizers like Sky Esports. Sky Esports has a very different formula. They try to invite a lot of influencers, a lot of celebrities, and a lot of streamers and whatnot, so that they can generate a very high amount of viewership. Now, it's not a fair tournament process like the EC, but these guys have the viewership. That means they can go and prove to the mainstream brands that, hey, esports is growing.
Yeah.
They do something of their own. TEC does something of their own. Northern Gaming has been around for a long time, and these guys have hosted some of the biggest, most prestigious events in the country. And they are, getting to work with the most popular publishers out there and the game creators out there. So they are basically attracting a lot of foreign investment into India. There's a lot of other smaller tournament organizers as well. Let's say another one that's popping up is Good Game One. They're trying to host a bunch of tournaments of their own, and I don't know what their objective is just yet, but I love seeing someone try to enter the space, try to figure out what's good, what's bad for themselves, and as long as they have a good head on their shoulders, it's great. Even the folks at LXG, even though they don't create their own tournament IPs anymore, they used to do it a few years ago. Right now, they're some of the finest producers in the country, and
definitely,
guys, they are so underappreciated. Like, they are so good at their jobs, but because they're behind the camera, because they don't show their faces on stream, nobody knows about them, and that's kind of criminal. I mean, people should be aspiring to become producers, aspire to become observers or league operatives. These are the people who keep the industry running. League Ops, oh my God, I need to mention this. League Ops is literally the flesh and bone of esports. Without those guys, this thing wouldn't exist. Imagine handling thousands of players. You need to handle the registration process, communicate with them when their matches are, who they're playing against, draw up the brackets. It's such a soul-sucking and tiring job. And they don't get thanked enough. It's a thankless job, but without them, the industry wouldn't exist.
Right.
Yeah, definite shout out to productions and League Ops.
Yeah, absolutely. Damn, I think honestly, me personally, so much I gained from this conversation. Obviously, that's also because it's the first time I'm having an in-depth conversation with a caster. So thank you so much, Kripz, for taking the time and having a conversation with us, going through the questions that we had. I think we were able to get out a lot of value through those answers and through the questions we asked. And hopefully, if there's someone out there who's trying to make it, I think the biggest takeaway for me is do your research and understand what opportunities are there, what roles you can play. It's not just about casting. And it's funny that you as a caster is the one who brought that up, but it isn't just about casting. There's so many roles, but and you might find that there's a role that fits you best, and what inherent qualities you might have, or what potential you might have to grow into that role. So thank you so much, Kripz. Thank you, Zara. Thank you, Rahul, for helping me co-host. That's pretty much it for today's episode. Kripz, you got anything coming up? I think today you're casting another event, but then by the time this goes out, in half an hour, but by the time this goes live, it will be probably Thursday. But all the best for that one, man.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening in. Next time round, we're gonna come back, but until then, this is Lobby Zero signing out. Peace. All right.